Hi everyone, Melanie here. I hope you're all doing well today. Today I wanted to talk about the impacts of dating someone who has borderline personality disorder and the effects of being blamed in the relationship, the consequences of being blamed. Maybe your partner might have NPD, and there is a devastating consequence for us when we are constantly being blamed in the relationship. One of which is making it very hard to decide whether we should get back with them, whether we should leave the relationship if we're still in it. And if we're out of the relationship, sometimes this can be one of the reasons why we're pulled back into such a dysfunctional relationship. Why is this? It's that sometimes it's out of a sense of obligation. The feelings of guilt that get triggered when someone points a finger and blames. Now, bear in mind that guilt is very normal to feel after a relationship breaks down. If you're the one breaking up with someone, just your average typical guy or girl, you're breaking up with someone, if you care about someone and it hurts to see them suffering. So yes, it's natural to feel a sense of guilt, maybe feeling a bit ashamed about how it went, perhaps, how it finished. And this is good. These emotions help us to pause and to reflect on our actions and to think, okay, what can I do better next time so that I'm not causing this suffering for the person that I care about and for myself. And as such, guilt and shame serve to help us modify our behavior. And ideally, we learn from experience and we grow and we become wiser. However, sometimes the feelings of guilt and shame get insanely triggered within us. And sometimes this is in a relationship when someone has a personality disorder. Consequences of this is that if you already have layers of shame and of guilt, if you can resonate in the past to allowing guilt to sway you in making up your mind, if you feel like you've always been carrying guilt trips from the past and now you have a partner who's pointing the finger. Yes, sometimes this sense of guilt, of obligation, of wanting to make them feel better, regardless of my own needs. No, I will feel better for redeeming myself. I will redeem myself by getting back in the relationship to make that person feel better, even though it's not going to make me happy. This is how guilt can sway our decisions. A sense of guilt can also make us give false promises. And this is just painful enough for the person who's been dumped anyway, but this can work against you if you're with someone who has a personality disorder. They won't forget this and they will use it as ammunition to keep you hooked in, to keep you pulled into the relationship out of a sense of obligation, out of guilt. When we get back into a relationship with someone out of a sense of guilt, we may think that it's the best thing to do, especially if there are children involved, if you're a family, if you feel like you're the one who is breaking up the family and that you're being selfish by doing what you feel is best for you. Guilt can make us come back out of a sense of obligation, but the feelings of anger, they don't go away. Anger will still keep bubbling underneath the surface. Anger at not having your needs met. If you go back and you're still miserable, if you're still compromising yourself to be in this relationship, anger and bitterness, it builds up, it festers. And if we keep ignoring it, suppressing it, just so that we can carry on, things are going to happen. Symptoms will develop, such as disease. It can get turned inwards, all this anger, and result in depression. And this just immobilizes us. We fall into inertia. We lose our sense of willpower to get out of it. And we don't want to get it this far. Let's not get it to the point where you are sick. Let's not get it as far as you being depressed and stuck in inertia. No. You need to make a choice from a better place of clarity. And the things that obscure our clarity in the moment to make the best decision is excessive feelings of guilt and of shame. There are certain relationships in which feelings of shame and of guilt are just provoked to the point where it's all consuming and it keeps us in a state of trauma, and it makes life just utterly unbearable that we think it's better to go back to that person. We feel so ashamed of what they say that we've done, that we think, okay, I shall soothe my shame, the psychological discomfort that it creates to be ashamed. I'll go back to that person and make amends and make it right, make him or her feel happier again. And thus I am soothed and I can feel better. That's what shame can do. Shame is such a horrible feeling. It creates such intense psychological discomfort that we will do anything to avoid feeling ashamed. Sometimes jumping into the arms or the bed of another person will do this as well. I've come to observe that feelings of shame and feelings of guilt are often the deciding factors when deciding to get back with an ex who has borderline personality disorder. And even just knowing this and voicing this, a lot of my clients often feel ashamed for even admitting this. There is so much shame in admitting that you want to get back with someone who's causing you suffering. Trauma bond is very real. Why does this happen? It is to soothe shame. It is out of a sense of guilt. And the thing is, when you date certain people, they bring it out. It's whatever layers of guilt and shame were already there, it becomes intensified. If we're already feeling traumatized, then we experience emotional flashbacks in which we are reminded of times in the past, traumatic times in the past, when we were feeling ashamed and we were made to feel guilty, and it feels horrible. And as such, we want to avoid feeling this. And so we think, okay, I will get back with that ex to make reparations and to soothe myself. And you often find dating people with a personality disorder that they will badmouth you to other people. Yes, they enjoy doing this. And why do they do this? Why is it that you are now the bad person? And it's horrible. It's horrible knowing that they are talking nonsense to people when they ask about your relationship. They're painting you out to be such a bad person, a person that it's not even the truth. Why do they do this? Okay, well, with people with borderline personality disorder, they are convinced that what they believe and what they're saying did actually happen. Someone with borderline personality disorder has something that's called a lack of object constancy. So if they're feeling a bit triggered and they think that you're doing a bad thing, you're a bad person, what they'll do is in the moment, however they feel about you in the present moment, means that that's how they've always felt about you. So how you are being in their eyes right now is how you've always been. They can't remember times when you've done good things for them. They can't really remember the loving times. How they feel in the moment clouds all the memories of how it's always been with you. Borderlines are also very well known to create false memories to suit their narrative, their story about how you're the one in the relationship that's such a bad person that's causing all this suffering. You are the reason why he or she feels this way. You are the reason why this relationship is breaking down. They will change the story. They will create false memories. And they do this to defend against fear of abandonment, and also they can't handle doing anything wrong. They can't handle being the bad person themselves, so they project everything onto you. They can't see themselves as making a mistake because they're guarding against shame. They are so defended about feeling the intensity of shame that unconscious defense mechanisms such as projection, such as splitting, you are the bad person, all their dark stuff, all their shadow is put onto you. And as such, they are so convincing when they say, point the finger and accuse you and say you are this, you are that, you've done this, you've done that to me. They're very convincing. And as a result, when we're not used to being with people like this, we think, maybe it is my fault. Maybe it is my fault. Maybe it was me. Let me give you another example. So say if you were dating someone who had psychopathic tendencies, maybe was a full-blown psychopath, antisocial personality disorder. Maybe this person was quite sadistic. They love gaslighting. I made a video previously talking about gaslighting, and this is such a favorite tool used by psychopaths to intentionally mess with your reality. And they enjoy doing this. They enjoy getting a kick watching you torture yourself. They enjoy blaming you, because this is all part of the grooming to wear you down, to make you submissive, to make you compliant. So blaming you is just fun for them. And no, they wouldn't be able to do shadow work themselves, because psychopaths, people with antisocial personality disorder, they too don't have a stable sense of self, and as such, they can't handle shadow work themselves. And then there's the people with NPD, those grandiose narcissists, those malignant narcissists. They too are very, very convincing when they're pointing the finger and blaming you. Like borderlines, they too have an external locus of control, and they too are convinced that what they're thinking is right. An external locus of control means that we're forever blaming outside forces for how things are. So and so did this to me, it's his fault, I'm the victim in this. That's an example of external locus of control. And both borderlines and narcissists are well known for having this external locus of control. So they will be blaming you, and they'll be very convinced. Narcissists are forever the victims despite their grandiosity. If something bad happens, if something messes up, if they've made a mistake, it's not because of them. They are amazing. It's because of outside forces. It's never their fault. For them to admit that it was their fault would show a sign of weakness, and they don't want to be seen as weak. They want to be seen as omnipotent, omniscient, and as such, they can't make mistakes. They can't be the one who's messed up. It must be you. And they're so convinced in this. They need to be convincing in this, because this is what they're telling themselves. They actually believe this. They believe their own delusions. And it's true. They create memories. They believe in their grandiosity so much. It's all a defense mechanism to support this false self. Like I said, people with personality disorders, cluster B personality disorders, it's all built on shaky grounds. They don't have a stable sense of self. And as such, they're very defended to maintain whatever false self they have. So it's very painful and quite believing when someone who is so convincing in their convictions that you did this, it's your fault that this happened, you are the reason why the relationship went down, you are the reason why I am acting this way. To some people, we can walk away from it and move on. It's painful, but we can move on eventually. For other people, this is exceptionally difficult, and it's really hard when we already have a history of being blamed, when we already have a history of being the scapegoat in the family. I made a previous video about being the family scapegoat. If you can resonate with what was said in the video, I'll put the link to the video at the end of this one, of being blamed in the family, of you taking the blame for everything in the family and you were accepting it all the time. If you're not sure if you're the scapegoat, let me ask you, are you the kind of person to always say, I'm sorry? To always be saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, just even out of impulse, out of reflex? When you're constantly saying you're sorry all the time, just so easily, not only does it seem fake after a while, but it shows that you're willing to take the blame. You're accepting the blame. Yes, I take on the blame. Yes, I'm sorry. It's my fault. And we learn to do this when we're growing up as a way to keep safe. It's a submissive response in a fight or flight, in a dangerous situation. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm taking the blame. Keep doing this around people, they're going to see this as a sign of weakness, and as such, they want to put the blame on you. You're very conveniently an easy target to do that with. And over time, that's just going to create more anger and bitterness and resentment. So watch out for this. If you're always finding yourself constantly over-apologizing, catch yourself doing this. Why are you doing this? Is this something that you've had to do growing up? Because now you're an adult, you've changed the environment, you don't need to be doing this anymore. If you feel like you're in a relationship in which your voice isn't being heard, you're not being seen, your needs aren't being met, you feel like this is an abusive and quite really dysfunctional and unhealthy relationship, is this a pattern from the past? You not having your needs being met, is this familiar to you? Were you not seen as a child? All of us as children, we need to be seen. We need mirroring from our family. It's how we build our sense of self. It's how we come to love ourselves, for healthy narcissism to develop, we need positive mirroring. Were you seen as a child at all? Were your needs met? Were you missed? And do you find that you're replaying this now as an adult in your relationships? Because anything that hasn't been addressed from the past, you haven't come to peace with, will just keep reenacting it in our intimate and personal relationships as an adult. So if you can resonate with what I'm saying, then now's the time to do some inner child work. Because there is a traumatized child that's still within any of us who haven't made peace with what happened in the past. If you had a traumatic past and you haven't come to terms with it, we still hold that within us. And the anger that we feel when we're self-betraying ourselves, that's anger from boundaries not being held up, from our needs not being met, for our voices not being spoken. We can resolve this. What does your inner child want? You think of the times in the past when you were blamed by family members, when you were missed, when you were shamed. What can you do differently this time to create a positive emotional experience for your child? What can you do differently now to redeem yourself and to give your inner child what he or she never has? One thing is safety, to not put yourself in situations again with people who are going to keep hurting you, to stop putting yourself in situations in which you are re-traumatizing yourself. This is how we give safety to the inner child within us that never had safety as a child. This is one of the steps of making peace with ourselves and peace with what happened. Listen to what your inner child wants. Do some free writing. Talk about it with someone. Think about it. Write it down. Get to the core of what the needs are. So those are just my thoughts. Do share in the comments below what you think. And as always, I'd love to hear from you. If this has struck a chord with you and you need some help in a difficult situation, please do get in contact. My email address is melanieprsvp@gmail.com. I'm going to leave it here for now. Have a lovely evening and take care. Bye-bye.